to you with some proof.
Hypocrisy is stunning.
Do leaders mean what they say? Do they ever say what they mean? To find out how real news affects you, your decisions,
Just when Iran took one step in the right direction, its moral police is planning to drag it further back. And once again, the victim will be women.
watch Gravitas.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in.
We don't impose our views.
Did India threaten to ban Twitter? Either that or Jack Dorsey is lying to you.
That is Gravitas. We let life breathe through our show. Gravitas, the informed show for an intelligent audience.
Hello, welcome to This World. Vladimir Amelyan joins us from Kiev, and he is currently on the front line fighting Russian troops.
We believe that the world should be ruled by democracies.
I was interviewing you on television a couple of weeks back.
That's right.
And you said, if you really want to understand Jerusalem, why don't you come here and see it?
And you came.
Here I am. Mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. Why this cannot be fixed?
There are 425 million guns in the United States, which is more than the population.
The problem here is Trump has been able to make the argument that this is a political prosecution and that he's being singled out unfairly.
Defend our nation.
You are saying we could have a cure for cancer.
We'll have treatments for many cancers in this decade, and they're going to come from India.
Downside is that it could potentially wipe us out. But let's start with the upside first.
The upsides are absolutely enormous. The potential uses of this are almost unlimited.
I only discovered AutoGPTs about a week ago and started writing about them. And after I started writing about them, Jeff Bezos followed me on Twitter, and all kinds of crazy amounts of people have been contacting us.
The show where we get you the week's biggest stories from around this world. What is the India story? It's the story of the world's biggest democracy.
We are developing the road infrastructure. In the end of 24, it will be equivalent to the road infrastructure of USA.
We have now entered the growth phase. And I believe that the growth rate in India is going to be exponential.
Two narratives of Indian story which need to be brought center stage.
Every week, the India story will bring the most incisive analysis, the most authoritative voices.
India will be a significant pole in the universe of AI going forward.
India is walking tall, India's stature is different, India's voice is being heard.
And the biggest newsmakers.
This is just a start. Tokyo, we won one bronze. Paris, we won a rocket. Good to see that, women cricket is getting more excited and everybody is looking up to that.
And these stories need to be told. And they are guided by the compass of their conscience.
From India, for the world, the India story. The show for the global citizen.
You don't know how to fix the holes in our ozone layer. You don't know how to bring the salmon back up a dead stream. You don't know how to bring back an animal now extinct. And you can't bring back the forest that once grew where there is now a desert.
You have ignored us in the past and you will ignore us again. We have run out of excuses and we are running out of time.
Show us your faithfulness. Show us your trustworthiness. Show us your honesty. Prove us wrong. We desperately need
American Njoka, and you're watching Wild of Africa. Great to have you with us today. This week, it's about abrupt natural disasters and an economic turmoil in Africa's most populous nation. Plus, the coup belt remains defiant against French President Emmanuel Macron and his cabinet, telling him off on his face? All that's coming up in the next 30 minutes. Welcome to the show. We decide who comes to Europe and not the traffickers. A strong statement from European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, who visited the Italian island of Lampedusa following complaints from the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and a state of emergency declared on the island due to the surge in migrants, mostly from North Africa. Von der Leyen proposed a 10-point action plan to help Italy deal with the rise in asylum seekers. But why is this proving to be a never-ending problem between Europe and Africa? Let's find out in our maiden report this week.
This is the island of Lampedusa in Sicily, Italy. Over 6,000 migrants, mostly from North Africa, arrived on the island. Police started to move some of the migrants to Sicily by ferry and plane.
I want to send a clear message to those who want to enter Italy illegally that it's not convenient to rely on human traffickers because they ask you for a lot of money and they put you on boats that are often not equipped to make those journeys. And in any case, if you enter Italy illegally, you will be detained and repatriated.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen even traveled to Lampedusa as dozens of the Italian island citizens protested over a recent surge in migrant arrivals. The European Union now says they have a plan for the migrants issue in Europe.
It is very important for me because irregular migration is a European challenge and it needs a European answer. So we are in this together.
Lampedusa, which is closer to Africa than the Italian mainland, has been overwhelmed this week by thousands of people hoping to reach Europe from Tunisia, which has replaced Libya as the main base for migrant smuggling operations in the Mediterranean. The Italian Red Cross says that around 700 new arrivals had been transferred off Lampedusa, and 2,500 more transfers were planned to try to relieve pressure on the island's refugee center, which has a normal capacity of around 400 people. As of the 16th of September 2023, the center was hosting about 3,800 people, down significantly from the more than 6,000 registered that week. There have been misfortunes in the recent past. Shipwrecks dominated headlines in August, where thousands of migrants on board boats drowned at sea in Greece, forcing the Pope to react.
With pain and shame, we must say that since the beginning of the year, almost 2,000 men, women, and children have already died in this sea trying to reach Europe. It is an open wound for humanity.
According to Interior Ministry statistics in Italy, nearly 126,000 people have arrived in Italy so far by boat this year, compared to 66,000 this time last year and 42,000 in 2021. The year 2016 holds the recent record for migrant sea arrivals, with a total of 181,000 people. Meanwhile, even Poland is dealing with its version of the migrant crisis. Details about the corruption scandal are coming to light a month ahead of the country's parliamentary election, scheduled for the 15th of October, leaving law and justice struggling to control the damage.
We're talking about people, and what I've seen, what we've all seen over the last couple of years, is weaponizing people who are in the most desperate of situations and using their vulnerability as a way to fuel what is often a political conflict, in many cases a domestic political issue.
Africans in Tunisia, meanwhile, are facing increasing discrimination and violence since President Kais Saied's February remarks that sub-Saharan migrants are part of a plot to alter the country's identity and demographics. Tunisia has replaced Libya as the main point of departure for people attempting the deadly Mediterranean crossing to Italy. Normally, when disaster strikes some of the African countries, the affected population looks for a way out, fearing for the worst, or in search of better life, where they often feel the grass is greener. Italy says it is prepared for such eventualities. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
To Sudan now, the crisis in the northeastern nation is evolving by the day. The military is seeking to expand their troops, so they have recruited civilians. Airstrikes are going on, killing hundreds everywhere they drop. Most Sudanese are desperate to escape as a de facto military chief makes a tour of at least 6 countries, including South Sudan, to support. Here's a report.
Wad Hamid Base, Sudan. Trapped in their country and nothing to do, thousands of young people thronged here for a recruitment drive. The massive rush began after Sudan's army chief, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, said the army is ready to receive and equip voluntary fighters. The possible recruitment of civilians, which could worsen already deadly cycle of violence. In the middle of all the brawls is this man, al-Burhan, the military chief who has refused to give in or give up. He visited army bases in Port Sudan ahead of planned talks with neighboring countries. He then went to Egypt, met President El-Sisi before boarding a plane and headed to Qatar, where he met Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. This was Burhan's 3rd trip abroad since August 29th and came a day after he issued a constitutional decree ordering the dissolution of the Rapid Support Forces.
This group, RSF, are not like our people in Sudan. We have nothing to say to them, and now is not the time for talks. We are dedicating all our time to this war. We are dedicating it to ending this rebellion. We are focused on ending this period and coming out of it stronger, steadfast, and with our heads held high.
The de facto leader continued with his whirlwind tour in Entebbe, where he met with Uganda's President, Yoweri Museveni. Even as the war persists, Sudan's main civilian political grouping warned that the country could be split and enter a protracted civil war if rival military factions that have been fighting for 5 months form competing governments. Since the outbreak of war between the RSF and Sudan's army on April 15th, the RSF has controlled swathes of the capital Khartoum, as well as areas of southwest and central Sudan. Another faction that has clashed recently with the army, Abdelaziz al-Hilu's SPLM-N, controls large parts of South Kordofan state. The army remains in control in other parts of the country, including the eastern Red Sea city of Port Sudan, to which some government officials and international agencies have relocated.
يعني أن نتجه نحو سيناريوهات حدثت في دول أخرى بوجود طرفين يسيطرون على مناطق مختلفة في بلد واحد.
Apart from the war, Sudan is facing another crisis. Flash floods caused by heavy rains in Sudan's River Nile have destroyed thousands of homes. At least 10 people have died this month because of the flooding. But the ongoing fighting between the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces is hampering the response.
We need houses to shelter ourselves. The situation is bad. Even before the heavy rainfall, it was bad enough. We want the government to help people here. People have no income to buy construction material.
All this crisis is forcing thousands away from what they call home. Sudanese queued at a cramped office to apply for passports in the eastern city of Port Sudan. Since authorities inaugurated a new passport office in Port Sudan in late August, hundreds have lined up here. Everyone here is desperate to obtain paperwork that will allow them to leave Sudan's deadly war behind.
I come every day early in the morning and stay till 9 p.m. with no progress. We just come and wait. We try to ask anyone, but no one gives us any instructions. This shows how unorganized the work is. With all honesty, it's unorganized. There is a problem.
About 1 million people have crossed Sudan's borders since April, fleeing the devastating war between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces. According to the UN, more than half the country is in urgent need of humanitarian aid, and 6 million people are on the brink of famine. With the rival generals battling for control of the resource-rich North African nation, it's the common people who continue to suffer. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Let's now head to North Africa, where two countries ravaged by two separate natural disasters are still struggling to pick up their feet and recover. Libya, which was hit by a devastating flash flood and collapsed dam that flushed thousands of lives from the face of the earth, is marshalling itself to unite the divided east and west regions to provide relief for the affected victims and rebuild the destroyed cities. Here's a report from Darna.
Marrakesh in Morocco is still teetering towards recovering from a 6.8 magnitude earthquake that tore throughout the city into neighboring regions, ripping apart structures and lives. When a distant neighbor bore the brunt of another natural disaster, flash floods. For many Libyans, the collective grief over the death of thousands has morphed into a rallying cry for national unity in a country blighted by 12 years of conflict and division. In turn, the tragedy has ramped up pressure on the country's leading politicians, viewed by some as the architects of the catastrophe. The oil-rich country has been divided between rival administrations since 2014, with an internationally recognized government in Tripoli and a rival authority in the east, where Derna is located. Both are backed by international patrons and armed militias, whose influence in the country has ballooned since a NATO-backed Arab Spring uprising toppled autocratic ruler Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. Numerous United Nations-led initiatives to bridge the divide have failed. In the early hours of September 11th, two dams in the mountains upstream of Derna burst.
The number of affected people is very big. The damage is huge. It's hard to describe or measure it.
An outpouring of support for the people of Derna followed. Residents from the nearby cities of Benghazi and Tobruk offered to put up the displaced. In Tripoli, some 1,450 kilometers west, a hospital said it would perform operations free of charge for any injured in the flood.
This catastrophe proved that Libyans are united. Even those who have opposing political stance and views or have different external or internal interests were united after what happened in the east, in Derna, Al-Baida, Susa and Shahat. It proved that Libyans are united.
The disaster has fostered rare instances of the opposing administrations cooperating to help those affected. As recently as 2020, the two sides were in an all-out war. General Khalifa's forces besieged Tripoli in a year-long failed military campaign to try to capture the capital, killing thousands. Others have leveled blame for the burst dams on government officials.
I reassured the citizens that whoever made a mistake, neglected, the prosecution will certainly take firm measures, file a criminal case against him, and put him on trial.
However, on ground zero, there is a new problem now. Aid workers and volunteers on the ground in Libya's Derna have raised concerns that the aftermath of the flash floods that ravaged the city could soon result in an epidemic.
The international organizations know the harm of decomposed bodies that remain unburied. But until this moment, there are no cases reported of an outbreak of a contagion that spreads and infects others.
Doctors say the lack of sanitation and capacity to deal with the number of dead bodies could be catastrophic.
What we urge people is to stay away from areas with stagnating water and, of course, dead bodies. Also, we advise them not to drink at all from groundwater because it might be contaminated with sewage water or anything else.
In the years ahead, Gaddafi's ousting, Derna was considered a bastion of Islamist extremists, including affiliates of ISIS. Rebuilding the damage is going to be a headache for a divided Libya and could take years. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
In West Africa, Nigeria's annual inflation rose to its highest level in nearly 2 decades in July at 24.08% against 22.79% in June, worsening a cost of living crisis in Africa's largest economy as President Bola Tinubu's reforms continue to take effect. Louisa Olaniyi sent us this report from Abuja.
Nigeria's annual inflation rate accelerated to an 18-year high of 25.8% in August, as Africa's largest economy grapples with rising prices ahead of a central bank interest rate decision later in September. In May, President Bola Tinubu removed a popular but costly decades-old petrol subsidy and ended exchange controls. This led to a spike in prices, from food to transport fares, and angering unions who have threatened strikes. The August inflation figure rose for an 8th straight month from July's 24.08%, compounding a cost of living crisis worsened by Tinubu's reforms. Official data shows the last time Nigerians experienced this level of inflation was in August of 2005. Analysts say Naira depreciation, higher fuel and food prices, logistics costs, and money supply growth were some of the major drivers of Nigeria's inflation.
The removal of subsidy helped in exacerbating the situation, whereby and also the devaluation, the unification of the exchange rate, which led to the devaluation of the Naira, also helped in increasing the current inflation levels. So that's why I said the current administration have a responsibility with respect, because the government is a continuum, so it has a responsibility in respect to where we are currently.
Contrary to analysts' expectations, the central bank raised rates by a smaller than expected 25 basis points in July. It is due to set rates again on September 26th, and some analysts expect a more hawkish stance.
With war. And I met a small group of veterans, Americans and Vietnamese, who wouldn't, and I watched the exchange of personal artifacts from that war, identification cards and a diary. It was deeply moving to see the reaction of the Vietnamese and American soldiers. Culmination of 50 years of hard work on both sides to address the painful legacies of war and to choose to work together toward peace and a better future. Nothing about that journey was inevitable. For decades, it would have been unthinkable for an American president to stand in Hanoi alongside a Vietnamese leader and announce a mutual commitment to the highest level of country's partnership. But it's a powerful reminder that our history need not dictate our future. With the concerted leadership and careful effort, adversaries can become partners. Overwhelming challenges can be resolved, and deep wounds can heal. So let us never forget that. When we choose to stand together and recognize the common hopes that bind all humanity, we hold our hands the power to bend that arc of history. My fellow leaders, we gather once more at an inflection point in world history, with the eyes of the world upon all of you, all of us. As President of the United States, I understand the duty my country has to lead in this critical moment, to work with countries in every region, linking them in common cause, to join together with partners who share a common vision of the future of the world, where our children do not go hungry and everyone has access to quality health care, where workers are empowered and our environment is protected, where entrepreneurs and innovators everywhere can access opportunity everywhere, where conflicts are resolved peacefully and countries can chart their own course. The United States seeks a more secure, more prosperous, more equitable world for all people, because we know our future is bound to yours. Let me repeat that again. We know our future is bound to yours. And no nation can meet the challenges of today alone. The generations that preceded us organized this body, the United Nations, and built international financial institutions and multilateral and regional bodies to help take on the challenges of their time. It wasn't always perfect. But working together, the world made some remarkable and undeniable progress that improved the lives of all people. We avoided the renewal of global conflict while lifting more than 1 billion people out of extreme poverty. We together expanded access to education for millions of children. We saved tens of millions of lives that would have otherwise been lost to preventable and treatable diseases like measles, malaria, tuberculosis. HIV/AIDS infections and deaths plummeted, in no small part because of PEPFAR's work in more than 55 countries, saving more than 25 million lives. It's a profound testament to what we can achieve when we act together, when we take on tough challenges, and an admonition for all of us to urgently accelerate our progress so that no one's left behind, because too many people are being left behind. The institutions we built together at the end of the Second World War are an enduring bedrock of our progress. And the United States is committed to sustaining them. And this year, we're proud to rejoin UNESCO. We also recognize that to meet the new challenges of our decades-old institutions and approaches, they must be updated to keep peace with the world. We have to bring in more leadership and capability that exists everywhere, especially from regions that have not always been fully included. We have to grapple with the challenges that are more connected and more complex. And we have to make sure we're delivering for people everywhere, not just somewhere, everywhere. Simply put, the 21st century results are badly needed. They're needed to move us along. That starts with the United Nations, starts right here in this room. In my address to this body last year, I announced the United States will support expanding the Security Council, increasing the number of permanent and non-permanent members. The United States has undertaken serious consultation with many member states and will continue to do our part to push more reform efforts forward, look for points of common ground, and make progress in the year ahead. We need to be able to break the gridlock that too often stymies progress and blocks consensus on the Council. We need more voices, more perspectives at the table. The United Nations must continue to preserve peace, prevent conflict, and alleviate human suffering. And we embrace nations stepping up to lead in new ways and to seek new breakthroughs on hard issues. For example, on Haiti, the Caribbean community is facilitating a dialogue among Haitian society. I thank President Ruto of Kenya, I thank him for his willingness to serve as the lead nation of a UN-backed security support mission. I call on the Security Council to authorize this mission now. The people of Haiti cannot wait much longer. The United States is working across the board to make global institutions more responsive, more effective, and more inclusive. For example, we've taken significant steps to reform and scale up the World Bank, expanding its financing to low and middle-income countries so it can help boost progress toward meeting the Sustainable Development Goals and better address interconnected challenges like climate change and fragility. Under the new president of the World Bank, change is already taking root. Last month, I asked the United States Congress for additional funds to expand World Bank financing by $25 billion. And at the G20, we rallied the major economies of the world to mobilize even more funding. Collectively, we can deliver a transformational boost to World Bank lending. And because the multilateral development banks are among the best tools we have for mobilizing transparent, high-quality investment in developing countries, reforming these institutions can be a game changer. Similarly, we proposed making sure developing countries have a strong voice and representation at the International Monetary Fund. We're going to continue our efforts to reform the World Trade Organization, preserve competition, openness, transparency, and the rule of law, while at the same time equipping it to better tackle modern-day imperatives like driving the clean energy transition, protecting workers, promoting inclusive and sustainable growth. And this month, we strengthened the G20 as a vital forum, welcoming the African Union as a permanent member. By upgrading and strengthening our institutions, that's only half of the picture. We must also forge new partnerships, confront new challenges. Emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence hold both enormous potential and enormous peril. We need to be sure they are used as tools of opportunity, not as weapons of oppression. Together with leaders around the world, the United States is working to strengthen rules and policies so AI technologies are safe before they're released to the public. To make sure we govern this technology, not the other way around, having it govern us. And I'm committed to working through this institution and other international bodies and directly with leaders around the world, including our competitors, to ensure we harness the power of artificial intelligence for good while protecting our citizens from its most profound risk. It's going to take all of us. I've been working on this for a while, as many of you have. It's going to take all of us to get this right. In every region of the world, the United States is mobilizing strong alliances, versatile partnerships, common purpose, collective action to bring new approaches to our shared challenges. Here in the Western Hemisphere, we united 21 nations in support of the Los Angeles Declaration on Migration and Protection, launching a region-wide approach to a region-wide challenge to better uphold laws and protect the rights of migrants. In the Indo-Pacific, we've elevated our Quad partnership with India, Japan, and Australia to deliver concrete progress for the people of the region on everything from vaccines to maritime security. Just yesterday, after 2 consultations and diplomacy, the United States brought together dozens of nations across 4 continents to establish a new partnership for Atlantic cooperation so that the coastal Atlantic countries can better cooperate on science, technology, environmental protection, and sustainable economic development. We brought together nearly 100 countries in a global coalition to counter fentanyl and synthetic drugs to reduce the human cost of this affliction, and it is real. And as the nature of the terrorist threats evolve and the geography expands to new places, we're working with our partners to bring capabilities to bear to disrupt plotting, degrade networks, and protect all of our people. Additionally, we convened the Summit for Democracy to strengthen democratic institutions, root out corruption, and reject political violence. And in this moment where democratically elected governments have been toppled in quick succession in West and Central Africa, we're reminded that this work is as urgent and important as ever. We stand with the African Union and ECOWAS and other regional bodies to support constitutional rule. We will not retreat from the values that make us strong. We will defend democracy, our best tool to meet the challenges we face around the world. And we're working to show how democracy can deliver in ways that matter to people's lives. The Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment addresses the enormous need and opportunity for infrastructure investment in low and middle income countries, particularly in Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia. Through strategic, targeted public investments, we can unlock enormous amounts of private sector financing. The G7 has pledged to work with parties to collectively mobilize $600 billion in infrastructure financing by 2027. The United States has already mobilized more than $30 billion to date. We're creating a race to the top with projects that have high standards for workers, the environment, and intellectual property while avoiding the trap of unsustainable debt. We're focusing on economic corridors that will maximize the impact of our collective investment and deliver consequential results across multiple countries and multiple sectors. For example, the Libido corridor will extend across Africa from the western port of Angola to the DRC to Zambia, boosting regional connectivity and strengthening commerce and food security in Africa. Similarly, the groundbreaking effort we announced at the G20 to connect India to Europe through the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel will spur opportunities investment across two continents.